Fast Forward Productions. The women are speaking.
One of the things that Growing Tactic has offered is kind of like entrance into these other communities, but then also like kind of bringing people out of predominantly like the CrossFit community, but even the regular gym goer community and into the running space. It can be kind of a daunting space to get into just because I think a lot of people identify as non-runners, or they think I can never run a marathon, or I can never run a half marathon. Like I can't even run a mile. So there's this identification as someone who can't do it. And so it's like, no, you can. And here's a community. We're going to help you. Greetings and salutations. You're listening to the Afternoon Snack Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Meredith. Alex is also here, but has decided to not be a part of this episode intro. So I guess I'll fly solo. We're going to spend some time talking about Tactic Run Club, which is going right now, culminating with some springtime races and specifically our meetup in Calgary at the end of May. But we're going to be re-enrolling Run Club, opening registrations in mid-April, so now-ish, right now, as you're listening, to get people signed up and going and looking towards some fall races as we kind of look towards the fall as well. So you have that to look forward to. And we're going to talk about what Run Club is if you're not sure about it. If you're like, well, I'm not a runner, can I be in Run Club? Probably. We can probably accommodate that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about bicycles and what I'm up to and what I'm competing in coming up. And I don't want to give a lot of it away because we haven't talked about it much on the podcast. And, you know, maybe you've picked up that I'm doing a lot of bike riding and a lot of training, and I'll talk about what that's preparing for. And then obviously the usual rambling and musings in between stories and such. So we will get right into it. Okay, so Alex has a confession and a bit of a fact check that she owes everybody.
Okay.
Well, she owes somebody.
So I have a bad memory, or at least that's what people tell me. Because like in my mind, I'm like, I remember things.
Who's people?
You. And then in this case, my mom. I recall something and then someone's like, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
So a while back, I had said on the podcast, I can't remember what episode, that when I graduated from high school, my mom said to me, you have accomplished nothing. This is nothing.
Savage.
And she tells me that that's not true. So maybe it's not true. I remember it. So we have a bit of a she said situation on our hands. I will be a good daughter and say that she didn't say it and give her the benefit of the doubt.
What?
I think she did say something along the lines of like, something along those lines, but maybe nicer.
I feel like here we're in a bit of a...
I always felt loved by my mom. Is that enough?
Yes, she loves you a lot. I feel like we're in a bit of a revisionist history situation.
Yeah.
Which is common because people don't necessarily remember things in the right way.
How do you even go back to figure it out?
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, are you having a revisionist history moment, or is your mom having a revisionist history moment, or like, is it both people? Malcolm,
maybe it was in my mind where I was just like, I was not interested in high school. Like, so maybe it was my mind that I'm like, maybe it was me being like, I haven't accomplished anything yet. Maybe I was projecting that onto my mom.
That could be it. Malcolm Gladwell, he has a whole podcast on like basically stories. They're like well known and they're wrong.
He did a podcast on 9/11 and memory and how they can shift over time. And they can shift with the way that like every time you tell the story of like where you were for 9/11, which is his example, it changes every time. And then you'll talk to a friend, you know, that maybe you thought you were with, and then they were like, no, I wasn't with you. We met after. Yeah. Or something. And it's like totally off base, but you have no idea.
Yeah. That reminds me of this movie, one of my favorite movies. I haven't seen it in a long time. I'm guessing you haven't seen it. It's called Big Fish. It's got Ewan McGregor in it. I don't remember who else.
I think I have seen it.
Yeah. And so his father's like sick or dying. And Ewan McGregor's character gets frustrated, I think, because his dad has always exaggerated stories. And that's like, you know, as a kid and a young man, something that really bothered him. And so he starts to look into his father's tales and stories, knowing that they're exaggerated and they're not going to be true. And then they like all end up being true. I love that movie. So that's not a good example of revisionist history, but it made me think of that movie.
Yeah.
It's really lovely. Okay. Do you feel better about that? Do you think that apology is going to be accepted? Or I guess it's not even an apology.
Apparently there are a lot of facts I get wrong, according to my mom. So like she said that I got my period when I was 15.
Okay.
But I was like, no, I think it was 16. And that's what I said. So again, I mean, it's a she said situation.
It's 1 year. What's the difference anyways?
I don't know. For the most part, I'm getting the gist of the stories right.
Yeah. There's no like egregious, you're not like, I didn't get my period until I was 23. Like that would be probably an egregious misrepresentation of the truth. 15, 16, whatever. Same. It's like, we're all blinded by like the trauma of teenage years anyways. So it's all just a traumatic blur.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There was probably most of it that I just didn't want to remember anyways.
Block that.
Can we talk about quickly that something's come up on the period topic? A comment on your post from yesterday, which was March 26th. Or no, it would have been March.
Oh, the menopause post?
Yeah.
That was March 26th. Yeah.
Okay, March 26th, menopause post, Meredith sitting down in the gym. She's wearing jeans. And there's a comment and it says, your grandmother had her menstrual cycle until she died. And that was in response to somebody saying, actually, not all women experience menopause. My grandmother did not go through it. She even had her cycle for 7 months of pregnancy with my dad. Some women don't go through it. So that was in response. Your grandmother had her menstrual cycle until she died. Yeah. And I thought that was a great comment. And then the woman said back, or assume woman, she's still very much alive and well. And I did not say that. Please read it again. Mm-hmm. And then the response, cessation of her menstrual cycle not applying to pregnancy. So your grandmother has experienced menopause. She may not have experienced symptoms such as hot flashes, etc. And then you respond back.
Yeah. Well, I think that what this person's probably getting at is that her grandmother never experienced symptoms of menopause, which not all women do. There's about 15% of women who go through the menopause transition because, to reiterate, 100% of women, if they reach, an age that's old enough, they will go through the menopause transition where they're no longer fertile, estrogen levels drop. And it can and does cause a lot of side effects and changes. But about 15% of women don't report experiencing side effects related to menopause, no symptoms. So she's probably talking about that.
Yeah. But I also just I'm like, that comment made me think about like a grandma or like even me getting to that age where I could be a grandma and still having my period.
I mean, like
that would be the
brutal.
Worst. So it's like, I don't know, like maybe that's a way to reframe like the change.
Yeah. Oh, I think
you go through it. It sucks for a lot of women for several reasons, but at least like then you're done with that part.
Well, and I think that there's a whole movement. I don't want to call it a movement. Let's not call it a movement. There are people who are acknowledging that like post-menopausal life is actually quite pleasant. Like there's a kind of a renewed clarity and mental focus. There are a lot of positives that come with like no longer going through the 28 to 30 day cycle related to ovulation. Like you experience more steady energy levels. You don't have the fluctuations and brain fog. And this is an aside. Something that I've noticed that I'm going to dig into is my symptoms, like ADHD symptoms, get worse before my period, even with medication. And I think there's some researcher that's in Calgary, some MD psychiatrist that researches that specifically, which is how to manage medication in the treatment of ADHD in women around their menstrual cycle. Now as more and more women are being diagnosed with ADHD, that's great. But there's also, people are saying, hey, my experience on days 23 to 28 is very different than my experience the rest of the month. And I would say that's pretty true for me. And I'm just sort of starting to like tap in and understand that. So that's an aside. But I think a lot of women do experience cycle related changes in cognitive function, like brain fog occurs for some women right before their period, that kind of thing. So you don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's something to look forward to. And I think on average, women experience side effects, and they vary and they can change for 4 years or so with menopause. So, I mean, but that's like, I don't want to say like 4 years is nothing, because that's not nothing, but it's also not forever. So that's cool. That's great. And then what was the other part of that comment? Her grandmother had her cycle for 7 months.
During pregnancy.
Yeah. So again, that's not possible because you don't ovulate.
What if you got pregnant again?
Well, you can.
While pregnant.
You can. It's very, very rare. And so what can happen is you get pregnant, like your body ovulates, the egg gets fertilized, you get pregnant, and then it's supposed to, and in most women,
there's like, what are you doing? Get out of here.
Yeah. Like in most women, that it shuts down like the ovulation cycle immediately. But sometimes, very rare occurrences, you can ovulate one more time. So usually the next cycle, ovulate, and you can get pregnant again. And that's called superfetation. I remember Jen Gunter said this in her talk. Yeah. So that can happen. So let's say you didn't get pregnant. Let's just say you ovulated. You might have one cycle related period early on in the pregnancy, like the next month, but any bleeding after that would be not related to a menstrual cycle because you wouldn't be having that.
That makes sense.
So anyways, that's just dispelling some, I guess, misinformation that embedded itself in our comment section.
Yeah.
But not the dangerous kind of misinformation, just the like, oh, no.
Yeah.
Kind of misinformation.
I mean, I appreciated the back and forth.
Yeah. Taylor McDonald, I think, was there.
I know, that's why it came up, because she is somebody who follows us and is a client. So it came up in like the top.
Yeah.
And so every time I open Instagram and look at the notifications, it's there, the first one.
I just
love that. Like,
your grandmother had her period until she died.
But then also the fact she's like, she's still alive and well.
Yeah. You're like, this is weird. I love the internet.
Okay. In Taylor's defense, again, the person who said that their grandmother didn't go through menopause.
Yeah.
Then you would have said hasn't gone through menopause yet if she were still alive.
True.
So it was a fair assumption that the grandmother had died.
I think so.
Based on that language.
That's valid.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think fundamentally, menopause is not a collection of symptoms. Menopause is a thing that actually, it's a thing that occurs.
Or doesn't occur.
Like puberty.
Yeah.
Like puberty is a thing that happens, and everybody, they go through it. Unless you like block it. But
yeah,
naturally you'll go through puberty. There's no way around that. And menopause, you'll go through menopause. Will you experience menopause related symptoms? Maybe not. Probably, but maybe not.
Yeah. Anyways, back to us. I have an announcement.
Should we drum roll?
No.
Okay.
For those of you who are aware of Run Club, which I'll go through what it is, it's going to be reopening for new members to join in mid-April.
Yeah.
So like
Nowish. Maybe we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll probably put a link in the show notes, and then there'll be an email that goes out, and then probably something on Instagram.
Yeah.
At least in stories or on my personal page. Because the way that it started out, I started it in April 1 year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So happy birthday to Run Club.
Oh, actually, yeah.
Happy first year anniversary to all of the initial Run Club members, which there are some, plenty actually.
Who are still participating.
Yeah, still going strong. So I started it in April in 2023 because I wanted there to be, let's see, like 6 months, approximately 6 months before the fall race season. So if you start mid-April, it brings you to like mid-October, which is when a lot of the fall races typically occur. I mean, you can do fall races in September and November, but you're kind of in the ballpark there. And I find that a half marathon usually starts, if you have the base, it's like 12 weeks. And then for a marathon, it can be 12 weeks depending on the base, but typically like maybe like 18 to 22 weeks, right. 16 to 20 weeks. But I like to give like a certain amount of time before the build begins where you're creating a base. So, you know, if you have a half marathon program that you purchase online, that's like, okay, week 1, the long run is 5 miles. Well, if you can run 5 miles, that's great. But if you can't run 5 miles 2 or 3 times a week for 4 weeks, and then you just start the build right from there,
yeah,
like chances of injury, it being too hard, We've talked about just like incorporating like running into your schedule. Like that can take a bit of time so that when you do start a 12-week build, you're prepped and ready for it. Physically, mentally, your schedule is ready for it. Your family is prepared for you to be out on Sunday mornings, like whatever day you do your long runs. So I like to have a buffer of like 1 to 3 months going into a race to get people sorted, to get their nutrition in order. And so when the build begins, 12 to 20 weeks out from the race, they're just in a really good spot. And that can help increase success for the full training build or program.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm reopening it in April, ahead of when the current run club is running their spring race, which is going to be at the end of May.
Plus, I think that overlap's going to be really cool for the people running in May and the people running in the fall, because the May group will get some like support from people who aren't running. And like, the new folks will kind of see like, okay, this is the end goal. Like I can do it. There are all these people who are, achieving their goals and running their races. And then obviously, words of wisdom and support starting out on like what can feel like a pretty long sort of training block. Because like you said, it's, training for more weeks, getting more of a base prevents it reduces the risk of injury. It doesn't prevent injury, but it reduces the risk. Like the hard part of running is the longevity required to build that base. Because I think, chronic adaptations to cardiovascular training take time versus anyone can go couch to half marathon in like 8 weeks if they really had to, but you're not going to retain a whole lot of that training going forward. So to start getting some of those chronic adaptations, and you want to just be pushing that duration a little bit longer. But yeah, seeing people see that process through, I think will be really valuable for the new group.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, a lot of people are still in Run Club, even though they all ran their fall races last fall, the original fall race, because it's exactly what I kind of hope for in best case scenario. And some people are still doing this. They're just not in Run Club, not getting my programming or my nutrition coaching. They've continued to run beyond the race, which is the goal. And I think having like a longer duration commitment up front helps to achieve that. Yeah. Because again, it's like, man, couch to half marathon in 8 weeks would be brutal.
You're just running a lot.
Like that would hurt. And the half, the half marathon would be painful.
Yeah.
Like a half marathon's painful to begin with. It's a long way, regardless of what pace you're running at. To run it, coming off the couch 8 weeks ago, sheesh. Like I wouldn't want to do another half marathon after that.
Right.
And that's what usually happens. People check the box and they say, I'm never doing that again.
That was my experience with my first half marathon. Granted,
and you got injured.
Was that like 2 weeks or was it 1 week?
I think it was 1 week. I signed us up and I was like, oh, it's actually June, not July. It's next weekend.
Yeah,
oh, well,
so we just
you'll be fine.
Right. So ran the half marathon and then I collapsed my arch.
Yeah.
That was awful.
It was.
And I was like, I think my words, I literally said like, I am never running another half marathon.
You were like, at the finish, you were like, I couldn't be paid money to run another 200 meters right now.
Yeah. If someone could have waved $1,000 in my face to run 200 meters, and I've been like, absolutely not. Get that out of my face.
Yeah. I think so. A lot of people they're taking the time to make it easy and doable, to enjoy it, and to just like take the time it takes to become comfortable with running. Yeah, that's been a dream. And then also, I find that working with nutrition clients who have performance-based goals, whether they're time-based, date-based, distance-based, I try not to add too many time. Like we've talked about the timeline thing, and focus on the process. But I do find that working on someone's nutrition with them is easier. There's less like resistance with making changes for nutrition or making compromises when they're doing it for a bigger purpose. Their why. And their why is so clear because I work on it with them. And they do feel very empowered when they run. This is true for many different types of fitness. I think running, obviously I'm biased, is a little bit special, but I love the nutrition performance combo.
Yeah.
We have most people who have performance-based goals, but we do have people who just go to the gym and they do workouts that maybe aren't measurable. You can't measure performance or progress.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit hard to kind of look and be like, okay, you haven't lost any weight, but like, are you seeing other areas in your life that are better?
Yeah.
When you have someone who's actively like pursuing a running goal, they can easily look at that and be like, you know what? I actually do feel really good in my running right now. Or like I ran 5K. That's the longest I've ever run in my entire life. So yeah, it makes sense. Maybe I'm not losing weight as quickly. Maybe I need to look at my body composition, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I just find there's a little bit more of like active patient's positive outlook than somebody who just comes in for weight loss goals, even though that can be a valid goal by itself.
The irony is that if someone does come in with that goal in combination with running, which, and like we've said, we always kind of prioritize the performance goal. And that's from a food standpoint, like that's a safety thing. Like you don't want to increase the risk of injury because someone's just not eating enough to support recovery, because that's what happens. Like you do that for long enough and you're really getting into a REDS type situation. That's a major concern. But a lot of times, if you can get someone to focus on the training and what they're getting out of it, and if they're enjoying it, and then eat to support that fundamentally, then you can still be in a little bit of a deficit here and there. Over time, like over those, 20 plus weeks, you do often see body weight come down a little bit.
Yeah, someone shared, and this isn't the first time I've heard it, on one of the Zoom meetings that we have basically bi-weekly. They mentioned that they heard somewhere, and it rung true for them, that when managing the goal of losing weight and getting to the start line, she said, I can either get to the start line a couple pounds heavier than maybe what I want and run a race, or run the risk of not getting to the start line at all. And that is very common. I mean, it's common generally because injuries are part of it, but that can be very common when somebody is trying to be on like a very extreme calorie deficit while also training and running a high volume of miles per week.
Right. And I think you see people set those goals kind of at the same time a lot. I don't know why. Like,
it's because people think cardio is for weight loss.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people run, which is, I mean, I'll say it. I think that's dumb.
Right. And so they set those goals at the same time. So they come to us and they're like, hey, I want to drop my calories and increase my running volume. And it's like, well, that's not the safest approach to take. And so I think that's a really important perspective, which is like, if your goal is to get to the start line, and I think it should be, because that's a really rewarding thing to do if you haven't done a race before, even if it's just like a 5K. Like if you've never run a mass start race before, it's exhilarating, it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking. Even if you don't have like a specific time goal, like that should be a big part of the goal.
I mean, a 5K for some people is a huge accomplishment.
Right.
And it is just, nothing makes me happier when someone says like, this is the longest I've run in my entire life, or since, getting back to running. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, I just think that that's the best.
But at the same time, like there's nothing more disappointing than seeing someone not make it there because, they're being a little too rigid with their food. They're too heavy-handed with that desire to lose weight and to, not eat more than 1,700 calories in a day, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so they never make it there. It's sad because you'll wonder, like, what did that do for that person? Like, what do they believe? Like, what are they taking from this? Where it's like, hey, let's put that weight loss goal aside. Maybe focus on that in a different way at a different time. But anyways, yeah, that's a little bit of a tangent on people combining those goals. At the end of the day, I think when you think back to like the experiences that bring you a lot of fulfillment and a lot of joy, especially people who run and do races of any kind, it's the experience of actually like doing the race. It's not like how much you weighed on race day. I don't know that anyone really remembers that.
No.
Yeah, but those feelings of crossing the finish line, you'll remember that for a long time. Hey, you. Yeah, you. Do you ever think, wow, it would be cool to meet up and hang with the tactic coaches and community? Does the idea of bagels and shakeout runs and hangouts with me, Alex, Lindsay, and the rest of our crew and community excite you? Maybe even signing up and running a race with your fellow tackies? That's a fun nickname for our community members. I didn't run that by Alex though, so I don't know. Maybe it will stick. Well, then we have just the thing for you. We are doing a spring meetup that corresponds with the Calgary Marathon. It will be May 24th through 26th in Calgary, Alberta, Alex's hometown and my adopted city. We have a full weekend of events scheduled starting on Friday afternoon with a meetup at the Stampede grounds, culminating in the running of the Calgary Marathon, half marathon, 10K, or 5K, or 60K if you're into that kind of thing. And of course, a formal group dinner on Sunday night. We did this for the Philly Marathon, but we are making it bigger and better this time around. You can sign up right from our website. We'll make sure to drop a link in the show notes of this episode. We hope to see you there. It is going to be really, really fun.
Yeah. So I guess a little bit about Run Club, if you're thinking about it. So basically it's nutrition coaching combined with running programming. And usually I program the runs, and then most of the time, most of my running people are doing the tactic functional fitness as like supplementary strength training. Mm-hmm. And I tell you like what workouts to do or how to accommodate those if needed.
Because the tactic fitness workouts, there are 2 days that are like distinctly kind of cardio heavy. Mm-hmm. So it's an easy program to modify.
Yeah.
If you're wanting to add in running, they're kind of like, there's 2 clear days to take away.
Yeah.
And then because it's a 5-day week program, you can also add in a running day. So there's your 3rd running day. And then you can still hit all of the gym workouts if you want. Yeah. If you can.
Yeah. And I usually say like, okay, I know this person has some like shin splint issues from the past. So I'm going to say like, don't skip on this day or sub box jump. So I try to personalize it if needed.
Yeah.
So usually that's what they're doing for strength training. And then mindset is a huge part. It's kind of like all in one coaching. The one-on-one nutrition coaching is text message based, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just like our usual nutrition coaching. You usually will log your food. I help you adjust your macros for long run days, intra workout, all that. It just kind of happens over the course of the months that you work with me. Mm-hmm. If you do have like certain body composition goals or other sort of performance-based goals as well, of course, those are considered. And then with the programming, it's bi-weekly or weekly delivered. So I base the following week based on your progress or results from the prior week. So if you're like, oh, Alex, like I had a really busy week, I didn't get in this run or this run, that's really good for me to know, because I'm not going to give you a full blown week and like progress you to the next like set of runs if you're not consistent yet.
Let's pause there. That's a major difference between personalized run programming and getting something off the internet, like a template.
Yeah. I mean, if you're following a template, which they can be good, I followed a template for my first marathon, but if you do struggle with consistency, or you can't run the number of days that it says that you need to run, or you miss a week because you're sick or your kid is sick or whatever it may be, or you need a lighter week just because you have a really busy week at work, having a coach to say like, hey, is it possible? Like we're 12 weeks out. Is it possible for me to drop back volume a bit? Or I was really sick last week. Like, can we modify this to still get me to the race? Mm-hmm. Like I'm still feeling a little sick. So maybe this week can be a lighter week and then we can ramp it back up next week. One thing I do say to some of my clients is sometimes I'll do that for them. I'm like, look, from what I'm hearing, like you're having a really tough week. You're struggling to get these runs in. Like, can we dial it back a week? I think that will be really good for you. And I know for me, having a coach doing that sometimes is helpful, or just doing it periodically as a way to kind of help your adaptation to training. So I think that can be a really helpful thing for people. And then it provides an accountability aspect as well. I mean, some people need this. There's a group accountability, and then there's accountability for me as their coach. I do require most people to send me results in a certain way back so that I can review them and know what's going on. And like, I never am disappointed or mad. I always just ask for communication. And I had a client in Run Club, unfortunately, who wasn't taking it seriously. They had a really, really big running goal, like a big ultra distance running goal. And I'm trying to program for that. And I'm trying to get them to pay attention to their nutrition because it's so important for these goals.
Especially those ultra distances.
And like not doing my programming, like questioning everything. I'd say like, what did you bring for your run? Oh, I forgot my carbs. And like, unfortunately, I was like, I can't work with you. I don't want to be responsible for you on race day.
Right.
I can't have my name attached to this. And like, I don't ever expect perfection, but I do expect like, if you sign up, like trust. That's a really important aspect of the coach-client relationship.
It's not like, okay, you're stepping into my world. You have to do everything that I say 100%. Like there are those coaches out there who are just like inflexible. It's like, oh, you can't do what I want you to do. Well, get out. Like, this isn't that. It's like, there's an expectation of communication and trust. And when you're not getting communication and you're getting not just lack of trust, but like questioning, how does that pan out? Where's that going to go? And that wouldn't be good for even outside of Run Club, even just like a normal coaching relationship. Like that's someone who's demonstrating like a sort of an uncoachability. It's like, I don't know if that comes from a place of needing to have control or like just sort of trust issues, like generally as a person. But it's almost like, I think some people, they almost like want to work with a company or a plan or like a coach so that like if and when something goes wrong, which it will, if that's the approach to training for something like that, then it's like, well, I was doing Alex's program So it's Alex's fault.
That reflects really poorly on me.
Mm-hmm.
And my clients can attest to this. If somebody wants to do something, I will 100% entertain it, at least a conversation.
Yeah.
Like people, I think that they are capable of setting their own goals and walking down that path. And the best way for someone to realize the goal isn't appropriate for them, if it is or isn't, sometimes I can't even say if it is or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, okay, let's see, this is what the process would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Or I might say, you know what, I think based on your physical progress and how you're managing this volume or whatever it may be, I think it might be better to drop back. Or sometimes they come to that conclusion themselves.
You can
or
almost
I could say
like,
hey, you know what? I think you should go for the marathon. I think it's just, I want it to be like we're working together here rather than you responding and being like, I did these runs and they're completely different than what I recommended. And I'm like, why? And also you ask why and they don't really want to respond. And anyways, it was not a good relationship. It's fine now. Most of my clients trust me because that's a requirement for any long-term successful relationship, I find. Yeah. Whether it's coach client or wife.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so Run Club, it's enrolling. They're going to work with you on nutrition and run programming. They're going to have access to the community via a Discord chat. There are occasional giveaways and challenges. There are also Zoom calls scheduled periodically, like 2 a month, right?
Yep. Right now, it's the first Thursday of every month at 5 p.m. MST, and then the third Wednesday of every month at 10 a.m. MST. So if you're not somebody who can make evening calls, you have a morning call available if you want to make it, if you're at work and you can schedule a meeting on that time for yourself.
So like 2 different time options.
Yeah,
which is cool. Like we don't do, like as far as community stuff goes, a lot of like face-to-face with groups. It's just not our coaching model and it never has been. So this is one of the only opportunities that our community has to come together. So it's neat. The Zoom calls are fun. I've been on a couple.
Lindsay Martin already is programming for a couple people. And then Jill Kerslake is also involved as a coach as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the idea here is like Run Club is small right now, but it's growing and it hopefully will become bigger and bigger every single year. I'm not giving up on it. I love it. It's my favorite thing. And maybe eventually I'll only coach Run Club. It is just that great. And it's just awesome to connect with people in a different way.
I think it's cool. Like one of the things that Growing Tactic has offered is kind of like entrance into these other communities, but then also like kind of bringing people out of predominantly like the CrossFit community, but even, you know, the regular gym goer community and into the like running space. It can be kind of a daunting space to get into just because I think a lot of people identify as non-runners, or they think I can never run a marathon or I can never run a half marathon. Like I can't even run a mile. So there's this identification as someone who can't do it. And so it's like, no, you can. And here's a community. We're going to help you. And it's not elite runners either. It's a mixed group. There's, I would say, mostly non-elite, just sort of casual folks.
Yeah. I mean, we have people who, I mean, in Philly, we had people training for the 8K. Some people are training for their first 5K.
Yeah.
Some people who ran their first 5K last Run Club are going for 10K this time. Yeah, I mean, it's beginners are 100% welcome. I love beginners. They're runners too. And then, yeah, any distance, first marathon, half marathon. We have somebody Tanya, everyone knows Tanya from the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to be doing her 100th half marathon in Calgary.
That's going to be
May.
number 100.
So
cool.
So she's also training for the 100-mile Leadville as well. So she's a part of Run Club. She's obviously got a ton of experience. And that's only better because she has a lot to share. I mean, she's the one who told me not to wear arm sleeves in Philly. And that was a good call.
Yeah.
So I like Run Club selfishly because I gain a lot from it, from other runners and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then that brings us to Calgary, which is our in-person event that's happening. Sign up for that is online. So May 26th is the race day. There's 10K, half marathon.
5K.
Well, the 5K is at like noon.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of a weird time.
Well, it's still there. It's still on
It's available. So 5K at noon and then 10K, half marathon, and then 60K.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the 60K is filling up or filled up. I got an email about it. I'm doing the marathon. Meredith is doing the 10K.
Yep.
I think we have about 50 people committed to coming. And then probably a lot of our tactic crew will be there as well.
Yeah, like coaches and community members.
Yeah. And so Friday, we'll do a little bit of a casual meetup for registration. Saturday is a bagel shakeout run. And then we're going to do like an afternoon workout / Meredith will be giving a talk at a local gym. in downtown Calgary. And then Saturday night, we're kind of off on our own, all carb loading. Sunday morning is the race. Then we're going to all gather after the race on
Sunday night. Oh,
no,
you mean in the afternoon?
Yeah, at the race, like at the finish, we'll all gather on site.
It's at the Stampede ground, so there's like a ton of
there was like
a lot
of
of gathering
whole,
options,
like picnic area and stuff where everyone kind of gathered.
Yep.
And we'll cheer each other on to the finish. And then Sunday night, we're having a party.
Yeah.
We're sussing out the details of that right now, but we have some really good options for food and catering and drinks and all that. And it's going to be a really, really, really cool and fun social event.
Yep.
I think it's going to be great. If you're interested in not running and coming, 100% be there. If you want to run, be there also. Yeah, the sign up's online. And if you have any questions, you can email me.
Yep.
So I guess we'll talk about you.
Me?
What do you have going on lately?
I feel like we never talk about me.
I feel like you don't really do anything, but now you're like doing something.
I mean, I wouldn't say I don't really do anything.
Well, you haven't really been a big part of like bigger events.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't running there for a while, and then I didn't find a replacement for that. Not going back to CrossFit. That's for damn sure.
Even though you're really strong right now.
Yeah. I was like kind of kicking around the idea of doing the open, and then I got this very random sort of shoulder injury irritation, which I think I figured out what caused that. So I'll describe it so you know what I'm talking about. If you hold I noticed it.
You know what? You say that we don't talk about you, but you do talk about your injuries a lot.
I know. I don't know. It's interesting. So I remember when I felt this, it was after we got back from Mexico and we were doing like a Facebook Live or Instagram Live workout. And I jumped up on the pull-up bar and I was like, oh, what is that? So I was demoing like a banded pull-up. And it was like my left arm, and it's like the lower part of my lat kind of like into my tricep. And it really only bothers me when I do like a strict pull up. I can do toes to bar. I can kind of kip like it, I can feel it when I do certain things, but it was like very strange, and it lingered. It has lingered. It hasn't gone away. So I'm going to PT to get needling and get it worked on, and it's feeling better. But like we're literally at the end of March, and it was kind of end of January that I noticed it, end of January. So it's been a minute. So that's why I didn't do the open, but I think I figured out what caused it. You remember when we were in Mexico and we couldn't figure out what to do with our arms because they're so heavy?
Yeah.
And so my default standing position was I would put both hands against my low back, but my palms out, like my knuckles would be in contact with my low back, like the top of my butt. And that's how I would rest my shoulders. But what that does is it kind of like internally rotates your shoulders. I remember doing it and being like, that feels like a good stretch. But I just stood in that position a lot. And I wonder if I just aggravated something just from all the hours of standing in that position.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still recovering from Mexico.
Your feet?
Everything. Sometimes I'm just in my body and I'm like, oh man, remember how painful Mexico was?
Yeah.
I couldn't even stand up straight
on
the
back.
beach.
Yeah.
Like all the photos, like I couldn't open my hips because my back.
Interesting.
Yeah. It was painful.
Yeah.
We're not made for standing.
Nope.
I mean, heavy arms are one thing.
Yeah. Back.
Now that I'm like sitting here, my arms do feel pretty heavy.
I know. You don't realize how much time you spend with them propped.
How many more pounds do you think our arms weigh compared to the average female there?
Like 3 or 4.
Or average person our size.
I would, yeah. I mean,
it would be like attaching like 3-pound ankle weights onto our arms. Onto another person's arm.
Yeah. And be like, here, hold these for the night.
For 6 hours.
I know. So anyways, that's how I think I injured my shoulder. I was like just standing with my hands in a dumb position for 3 days.
I would probably,
Anyways, what were we talking about? Injuries.
What are you doing right now?
Okay.
You actually are doing something exciting.
I am. Yeah. So I'm training for a gravel race. A couple of them, actually. That was an idea that I started kicking around in the fall because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do from like an endurance sport standpoint. And gravel racing is getting really big in North America. It's like really taken over the road cycling scene. And I've been into bikes before. I've done riding. It's not my first rodeo, but I did the Fernie gravel grind last year. Wasn't trained for that in any way. And that's a 100-kilometer ride, which is around 64 miles, I think, for the Americans listening. And like that went as well as I think it could have, considering it's basically riding up a mountain and then back down. And so that was like, that was kind of fun. And so I bought a indoor trainer because you can't really ride productively outside in the wintertime. So I bought an indoor trainer, like a Wahoo, put my gravel bike on that and just started riding. I do a lot of fat biking in the wintertime just for fun and for Rue. And it's good for bike handling and just sort of the skill part of riding a bicycle. I actually really love fat biking. I didn't think that I would. I just thought it was something that I would do with Rue. But it's actually, I'm convinced that people who think that they don't like fat biking just haven't really done it. It's so fun. That's an aside. So I put my name in the lottery for Unbound, which is a gravel race in Emporia, Kansas. And it's like the gravel race to do in North America. It's the big one. And there are 3 competitive distances. There's the 100 mile, 200 mile, and 300 mile. The 200 mile is the Grand Prix distance. So that's the one that the Lifetime Grand Prix cyclists and pros will do. You get some pros in the 100. And then the 300 mile is more the like bike packing kind of like super ultra distance folks will do that one. Because you're going, like you're obviously riding overnight and stuff. So I put my name in the lottery for the 100 mile because that felt the most doable. And wasn't expecting to get in because it's super competitive. Like most people who put their names in don't get in. And I was reading Reddit and just it was seeming unlikely that I would get in first year. And then I got the email that I did. So that was kind of a surprise. So immediately just was like, okay, like I need to actually do some training here. Because I had just been doing some just trainer rides to, get mileage in. I started doing that, I think, in November. So that's what I'm training for. And that's the weekend after Calgary, the Calgary Marathon.
So are you going to run in Calgary or not?
Yeah, I'll probably do the 10K. Okay. It's no big deal. So yeah, that's the first weekend in June, training for that.
But then you were like, I should do a race before that.
Yeah, I didn't want Unbound to be my first race if I could help it because it's notoriously difficult. The conditions are really hard. The gravel there, like the roads, it's this kind of flint gravel. So it's flat, it's jagged. It's not so dissimilar from like shale that you get on some of the roads up here. So it's not something that I haven't seen before. There's risk to bike handling. There's, that gravel is notorious for causing flats. It's just, it wouldn't be the best like first race of the season if you can help it. But unfortunately, the Pacific Northwest, like where we are, the race season really doesn't start until kind of mid to late June. The weather's not conducive. It's not a good time of year any earlier than that. So I found a race in North Carolina in the middle of April. So April 20th, the Bootlegger 100, which is in Lenoir. So that's the mountains of North Carolina. It's kind of close to Boone, I guess, if you're familiar. And they have 2 distances. They have a 100 mile and a 60 mile. And so I decided to do the 60 mile there just kind of as a prep and, sort of feel out the bike, feel out, racing. I haven't done a lot of riding with groups in a long time. So getting a feel for, pacing, drafting, leading, pulling, all of that kind of stuff that you do in group racing situations. And yeah, I'm hopeful that I can actually do really well in that one. It's a smaller field. It's climbing. So it's the type of riding that I'm a little better at. So like climbing, high power output, sustaining high efforts. Climbing favors lighter riders over like bigger, powerful riders, which makes sense because gravity. So if you have a higher sort of strength to body weight ratio, you tend to be a better climber, which I do. And then the road, like the gravel's really nice there. So when you compare the gravel roads in Western North Carolina to the gravel roads here in British Columbia, it's like a luxury. It's like fine. It's not quite sand, but super smooth. Even when it gets a little wet, it's grippy. So I'm looking forward to that one. I think it'll be really nice. And then obviously a good reason to go home and see my family. So that's, Bootlegger 100, 60 mile distance, April 20th. The Unbound gravel first weekend in June. And then Fernie Gravel Grind, which is actually my birthday weekend, July 15th. So those are the 3 that are on. And that's 100 kilometers. New course this year. I don't know what the course is. Apparently it's going to have a little more double track, single track in it than last year. And then, that's it. I think the thing that I found out about Kansas is accommodations are really challenging in Emporia. It's not a very big place.
So you rented us a Sprinter van.
Yeah. I couldn't find a house that was affordable because the Airbnbs are just hiked up. There's not very many hotels. Like you can stay in Topeka, but now you're almost an hour away. So I rented us a Sprinter van that we're going to pick up in Kansas City and essentially like drive to Emporia, camp wherever we want.
How long is the drive?
Oh, it's like 90 minutes.
Okay.
I do have a spot reserved at the campground with power in case it's really hot so we can plug in and have the air conditioner. Okay. Of course, I rented one with AC, obviously. But if it's not hot, then we can kind of camp wherever we want. Yeah. And then you're literally 2 minutes away from the start line. Alex will have to be, the thing about Unbound is you have to have support. Like you can't ride it without a crew, quote unquote. A lot of people bring a lot of people. My crew is Alex, one person.
If you want to come and rent your own Sprinter van and you are good at bike mechanical stuff, but I feel like you're going to be out there. Like, what am I going to have to do? You're going to be like out.
The reason why you have to have a crew is you have to have someone who can get you off the course if you DNF.
So you would call me and be like, come get me.
Yeah. Well, I think, but you can only pick them up at like specified places.
Okay.
So you still have to be able to get yourself.
I don't actually have to like do anything.
No, you don't. You're not going to have to
get you, which hopefully I won't have to.
Yeah. And hopefully
I think I can handle that.
When I meet you at the aid stations, because you are going to be at aid stations. Yeah.
Okay.
You're going to have to pack up our.
Give me like an itinerary for that day.
Yes.
Okay.
You're going to have to pack up our house.
Yeah.
And drive it to an aid station.
Okay.
Multiple aid stations so that you can like do refueling.
So I've never driven a Sprinter van.
That's okay. You'll be fine.
It's just like a regular car.
I haven't driven one either. So I appreciate you think that I know the answer to that. I'm sure it's fine.
Just don't take corners too quick because they're tall and they can flip.
I don't know how quick you'd have to take a corner, but
you know how I can drive.
That's true. Yeah. So that's Unbound.
Well, I'm excited. I've been excited for you because even though you work hard in the gym, it's kind of exciting to see you back in the endurance world because I'm like biased now, but it's also cool just to see you kind of like having something that you're working towards again, like a real, like an event. Because before that it was CrossFit and then you were kind of running and then that because of your injury. So it's just been cool to see you like just really into it. The downside is you're spending a lot of money.
Biking is so really expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know it brings you happiness. So I'm accepting it.
I did have to upgrade.
Every time you do buy something, I say,
I know
we can cool it.
I know. I did have to get a new bike because the one that my old state is, well, it's a cyclocross bike. It can't clear the tire width that I need or you would want. And it's old and rickety and aluminum. It wouldn't hold up. It would break. It would break in Kansas for sure. So for anybody who cares, I got a Trek SL7.
Yeah. And for anybody who cares, Meredith and I have a deal where it's like every new bike she gets, I get a new animal. So I am currently on the hunt.
Oh, I owe you an animal?
And I have my eye on at BCA cat.
Oreo?
Her name is Oreo, but because we like 3-letter names, I would change it to Ori.
Okay. So we've already named the cat. That's good. That's good. I also have a rule. It's 1 cat per 1,000 square foot house. We're actually at our cat limit. We'll have to discuss that later. But yeah, I think it'd be really fun. I've always really liked bikes. I used to work in bike shops when I was in high school and in college. Like I've always been into them. I stopped riding bikes when I started doing CrossFit. I used to road bike and do a little like crit racing and then got into mountain biking because it's safer because road riding is dangerous.
Yeah.
Not that mountain biking is not dangerous, but, and then essentially, so when I started getting more into CrossFit, I wasn't tolerant of the risk of injury and I didn't have as much time. So I stopped mountain biking and then I moved here.
Now we're going back to our roots.
We're all going backwards. Isn't that how life goes though? It just sort of is cyclical.
I don't know. I also feel like as you age, there's less like maybe certain people, there's like a draw towards endurance because it's just like, it's less on your body. That's how I feel.
I don't
know about the science. That's just like how I feel for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't, like, I still lift heavy. I still like max out. My maxes aren't as high as they were when I was in CrossFit, like competitively. But I'm also just like, my body cannot take being under like that much like actual stress that frequently during the week.
Yeah.
Like, it's too much.
It's not even the load, it's the intensity. It's the like.
And like running fast and running long is intense, but not in the same way. Your nervous system doesn't get taxed. Like, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's very different.
Yeah. Doesn't it come with the same pressure?
Yeah. I feel like even though endurance sports can be like intense, coming from CrossFit, you're like, oh, this is super chill.
It is. It's like, so I can ride a bike for
and it's so like
3 hours,
recreational. Like CrossFit's supposed to be recreational, but people are also intense about it.
Yeah.
So it's like, it loses that vibe of like, we're all just here to have fun, you know, because we like bikes or because we like running outside.
There's like CrossFit, it's inherently kind of unfun.
Yeah.
And then even if it is fun, you get to the open season and it's not fun again.
No.
But
let's not open that can of worms.
I don't know. There's so many people who just cry with CrossFit. I'm like, why?
Anyway.
That's me. That's what I'm doing. And then you're running and I'm biking and running and biking.
Yeah.
And we're going to probably both bike a bunch this summer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the update. Sign up for Run Club or get your butts to Kansas.
Should I do maybe I should
Calgary.
do a biker gang. Maybe I'll do a bike club.
Maybe.
Eventually. That'd be fun. Do jerseys.
You could do like a group tactics Strava ride.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
You mean Zwift?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a meetup ride?
Yeah.
We should do that. That'd be really cool, actually.
Yeah.
if I did a group ride, not that I've obviously thought about this, but if I like put on a group ride for people, I would call it, because like a mass start, they call a grand fondo. I would make it women's only, and I would call it a Jane Fonda. It's like grand fondo.
What about
Jane
the men
Fonda.
who want to come, or
It would be women / like gender expansive. If you want to come, you can come.
Gotcha.
You have to be a feminist though.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the rule. Yeah. You can't just like women. You have to like value women's part and contribution to society. And as long as we are on the same page with that.
I feel like most of our community is there.
I know. So most of our community would be invited.
So Tactic community can come.
Mm-hmm.
Not that guy who didn't like that we were gay. He can't come.
No, not that guy. And not that person who emailed me recently with hatred about our Brandy Carlisle weekend.
Wait.
I didn't tell you this?
No.
Yeah, someone emailed and called us shallow. And that she was listening until we spent 2 episodes talking about going to a lesbian convention.
Oh.
And I was like,
I didn't know about that. Okay, she's not invited.
No.
Remember Richard?
Yeah,
he's not
Richard's
invited either.
He's not invited either.
But everyone else can come.
Yeah. We'll let you know. If you want to come and you've wronged us in some way, we'll let you know that you're not invited.
Yeah.
To your face. But that's a small list.
How is that shallow?
I don't know. And they didn't even complete the sentence in their email.
Oh, they must have been mad.
They were mad. Yeah.
It's just one more person who has really high standards of us, even though we're just people.
Wrote back a really kind email and said, I appreciate your feedback. We've never been called shallow before, but I'll reflect on that. I understand like a lot of people engage with us on the internet that don't really know us as people. And if you interpreted anything that we said in that way, I apologize. I also follow a lot of people on the internet and sometimes get put off by things that are shared. And so I disengage with them. I don't often feel the need to let that person know that I've disengaged with them. So I hope that this has brought you whatever peace or validation that you were looking for.
What a great response. Good for you.
Thank you. That's what I said.
Way to keep it cordial.
It did. It was like a professional middle finger.
I did get a response on that podcast for a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to let that person have the last word. But in doing that, I felt like I got the last word.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I respond to almost every email I get, but I'm going to give myself a break on this one.
Uh-huh.
And I junked it.
Yeah. Sometimes, like, I don't think that person that emailed me was necessarily looking for a response. You can tell when the person is looking for a response. And so the best thing you can do in that situation is not respond.
Either way, I didn't have it in my mental capacity that day.
Yeah.
Or even after I let it sink in for a couple days.
I like to remember for the 2 emails that we got on those episodes, there was like 100 people that were like, that was so awesome to hear.
Yeah,
about.
and a lot of people who think that they're coming with us, which is great.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not think, might.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or we're like,
Yeah.
you know what? Yeah, Abby, that for sure started a fight between those 2.
Yeah.
Anyways, won't get into it. I guess at this point, we'll sign off by saying thank you for listening to us, whether you're a new listener or an old listener or a return listener.
Or you only listen to the ones that have really cool titles.
Maybe we'll find a cool title for this one.
Yeah. It's trick people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll bait and switch. Yeah, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Like, subscribe, review, do your thing, share it with your friend, your mom, your dog. If they find comfort in hearing a human's voice while you're away at work, let it be ours. Happy to do that. We had to skip an episode, so apologies. We're back on schedule.
If you listened to that episode, that wasn't supposed to be released. So you got a bonus.
Yeah.
A lot of things have changed. That wasn't the most accurate representation of what's currently going on. So stay tuned.
If you have no idea what Alex is talking about.
Changes are still happening, people.
Yeah.
Stay in the loop.
People
Get
like,
on our email
what?
list. Keep listening to podcasts.
What? Yeah. You did miss something. That something was, anyways, we'll do another episode coming up about
cryptic.
That. Sorry if that made you a crazy person, but yeah, there's some things happening. It's mostly good, but somewhat of a headache. Anyways, we'll get off of here. Thank you for listening. Catch you on the next one.